It was the night before All Hallows Eve when we heard from the Chancellor Rachel Reeves. She laid out her budget, her plans for year. Has she given you hope or filled you with fear? Panel, good to see you.
And
you? Of course, oh gosh, what was that? It's Halloween, of course. How are you feeling about that, Carolyn?
I like Halloween, so I'm quite excited.
And Mike, I mean, I've got the feeling you might be the Grinch of Halloween to end all Grinches.
I'm afraid I'm the Grinch. I'm a bit nonplussed. I lived in America for, a number of years, and it's OK there. People, sign up to it. No, but I like Guy Fawkes Night. I like Bonfire Night, and I don't want it to be overshadowed by this imported celebration, which I think has been forced upon us.
And there are lots of people of a certain generation who, if you say penny for the guy, they don't know what you're talking about.
Exactly.
And do they need an urgent history lesson, Carolyn?
Well, I think Halloween's always been quite big. It was for me when I was a child.
Was it?
Oh, God, yeah.
Not for me.
Maybe it was a Welsh thing then, was it? But we certainly dressed up for Halloween. Yeah. Guy Fawkes has never been that big in Wales, if I'm honest.
Oh, well.
Maybe that's because it's an English thing.
Yeah, maybe it is. Maybe it's an English-Welsh thing. But I don't even remember Halloween when I was a kid. We never went round knocking on doors. In fact, the first time I ever heard about Halloween was Clint Eastwood. What do you think I'm doing? Trick or treat? And I wondered what trick or treat was in the Clint Eastwood film.
We used to have Swedes, and we'd holler the Swedes out, put a little candle in it, and we'd go round dressed as whatever, usually witches or something, you'd smell the burnt Swede for days and days and days.
Well, of course, it is Halloween today, and if you've already been dressing up for spooky parties and events, we'd absolutely love to see your fabulous costumes. Do send us your pictures. Jason has already been in touch. Thanks, Jason, with this lovely picture. Oh, isn't she gorgeous? Oh, she's adorable. That's Skylar. And Skylar's on her way to a Halloween party. Oh, she looks divine. So if you want to share your pics, do email jeremyvine@channel5.com, jeremyvine@channel5.com, and we will definitely show some of our favourites throughout the programme. So, Labour's first budget in more than 14 years. Yesterday was also an historic occasion, as Chancellor Rachel Reeves acknowledged.
It is the first budget in our country's history to be delivered by a woman. To girls and young women everywhere, I say, let there be no ceiling on your ambition, your hopes and your dreams.
Come on, girls and young women everywhere. What do you think, Carolyn?
Well, Rachel has broke through the glass ceiling, hasn't she? And I think it's truly inspirational for all women to see that she's the first female Chancellor. I'm absolutely delighted for her.
And do you think she did a noble job?
I think she's doing a brilliant job. And I think what I'm really impressed with is she's owning it. She's absolutely owning this. She knew it was going to be tough. She knew that she had to do things that she didn't necessarily want to do, but she's owning it, and she knows that she's laying the foundations for the future.
Pundit after pundit were calling it a big budget, the biggest budget since Norman Lamont's. However, Labour's budget was significant for another reason, because it included £40 billion worth of tax rises, the biggest number of tax rises in 30 years. The Chancellor claimed the move was necessary to fill a £22 billion black hole left by the Tories and help provide meaningful change in Britain.
The choices I have made today are the right choices for our country. To restore stability to our public finances, to protect working people, to fix our NHS, and to rebuild Britain. That doesn't mean these choices are easy, but they are responsible. If the party opposite disagrees with the choices that I have made, then they must answer. What choices would they make?
However, the Office for Budget Responsibility warned that tax rises on businesses, which make up most of the hikes, will ultimately result in fewer jobs and lower wages. Meanwhile, Conservative leader Rishi Sunak said it was a budget full of broken promises to the public.
They have fiddled the figures. They have raised tax to record levels. They have broken their promises, and it is the working people of this country that are going to pay the price.
So here's the big question for you this morning. Who do you side with? Was the pre-Halloween budget a trick for you, or was it a treat? Will you benefit, or do you feel as if you're going to suffer? 0207 862 2222. That's the number. We're really looking forward to hearing your response. Let's commune, though, with our Halloween ghosts for a reminder of some of yesterday's announcements. Will they get you into the spirit of Labour's budget or haunt you in years to come? So for workers will see no rise in income tax, national insurance or VAT. Income tax thresholds will rise with inflation from April 2028. And the rise in minimum wage that we discussed yesterday was confirmed. But commuters will see train fares rise by up to 4.6%. Rail cards are going to rise by 5%. That's according to a Treasury document revealed alongside the budget. If you drive to work, though, the fuel duty freeze and a 5p cut has been extended for a year. Now let's think about businesses. Now, businesses' employer national insurance contributions will increase from 13.8% to 15%. That's a huge hike. And they're going to start on salaries of £5,000 a year, down from £9,100. So that's going to raise £25 billion a year. Capital gains tax on profits from the sale of businesses and shares will also rise. And the business rates discount for the retail, leisure and hospitality industry has been cut from £75 right down to 40%, from 75% to 40%. And in the terms of properties and inheritance, well, stamp duty's rising from 3% to 5% on second homes and buy-to-let properties, which could hurt landlords. We'd like to hear from you if you're a landlord. Above inflation rent hikes on social housing have been approved, and right-to-buy discounts are to be reduced. Despite reports suggesting otherwise, the inheritance tax threshold's been frozen until 2030. You still won't pay it on properties worth up to £325,000. But unspent pensions may be subject to inheritance tax for the first time from 2027. And in terms of leisure, well, a vaping tax is being introduced from October 2025. Tobacco will be taxed at the rate of inflation plus 2%. And there's a 10% tax increase on hand-rolled tobacco. A cut to draft duty means 1p off pints in pubs. You may want to raise a glass to that. Fans of soft drinks will see the sugar tax increase over the next 5 years. And from 2026, tax on economy short-haul flights will increase by £2 per passenger. On long-haul flights, it's going up by £12. So who's going to benefit from the cash? Well, the NHS is getting £22.6 billion extra pounds for day-to-day spending. Benefits are rising 1.7% in April, with 5.7 million families on universal credit gaining £150 a year. £240 million will be put towards health and employment services for the long-term sick. Local councils will get £14.3 billion extra, including £600 million for social care. There'll be a £2.3 billion increase to the core schools budget, with £300 million extra pounds for further education. And the defence budget will see a £2.9 billion increase next year. So we're dying to hear from you on this one. You sat there, you're listening, you're trying to work it out, you've got your pen out, trying to compute, are you going to win, are you going to lose? How do you stand to fare in this budget? Let's go to Carolyn, because you found it historical and you look very pleased with Rachel. You say she owned it. Is it going to benefit the right people?
Yeah, it's going to benefit the working people. It's going to benefit the people who up until now, under the Tory government, were always the losers, and now they're going to be the winners. So, yeah, it's going to go to the right people. All these things that we need to do, all this money we need to put into the NHS and into education, the money's got to come from somewhere. And the burden of responsibility is now falling on those who have more, and the people who need those services, and the people who need increases, like low-paid workers, like young people who are on minimum wage, they will now benefit.
Is it fair, Mike, to say that the burden has fallen on those who have more, or is it fair to say the burden has fallen on business, and some businesses are manned by small operators working round the clock to try and keep a business afloat? This might scupper them, and also ultimately they might end up laying people off in order to pay the money they've now got to pay.
Yeah, I think it's a disastrous budget. I think it'll do the country untold harm. To start off with, we didn't know it was coming, this massive 40 billion quid, because Starmer and Rachel Reeves lied to the electorate. They didn't tell them. In the manifesto, there is no mention whatsoever of half of these increases that they've introduced right out of the blue. If the electorate had known £40 billion worth of new taxes was required, I bet you the election would have been much, much closer. And can I just say, Carolyn, please, in my view, it's a typical Labour budget. Borrow, tax, spend. 27 million people work in the private sector. They have gone in there and taken an enormous amount of money out of the private sector, which is the sector which produces all the growth and all the profit in our community, and they've transferred it to 5.5 million people in the public sector who are not anything like as productive. And that means businesses and people will lose their jobs in the private sector.
Right, hardly surprisingly, the lines are lighting up. So I'll give Carolyn just one very brief response.
I mean, in terms of business, if you're a small business, you're going to get £10,500 towards your NI bill. So small business owners needn't worry about that. They will get support to pay the NI. But this was a budget that the Conservatives were going to have to deliver because the country is in a mess, Mike. The black hole is
no black hole.
real.
There is no
black hole is real, Mike, and services are desperately needed to have funding.
Right, let's go to the phone.
Office for
we'll be
Budget
able to gauge how
Responsibility
people are responding, won't we?
says no black hole.
The first caller this morning. Hi, Julie in Somerset. Morning to you. Was it a trick for you or a treat?
It was a treat because I am a retired registered general nurse. I'm a retired state certified midwife. I agree with a lot of what the lady on the left-hand side is saying.
Yes.
Yeah, the NHS needs that money. I recently retired from being an operating theatre sister and I watched the wonderful Conservative government drive the NHS into the ground. We need that money. We need it for the NHS and we need it for education. And like the lady on the left-hand side said, the money's got to come from somewhere.
You don't worry, Julie, that you're somehow going to end up paying for it, that you're going to end up either having to pay more because businesses have got to pay more in national insurance, a great deal more, or that some way along the line you're going to end up being the person penalised here?
Well, we would have been if we had a Conservative government because they would have probably got rid of the NHS. So, and I have paid my national insurance and my income tax and my value-added tax since I was 17. Yeah. So I've already paid for that. So that would concern me if we had a Conservative government.
I mean, Mike, I don't think there was any suggestion that the Tories were going to get rid of the NHS, do you?
No, and Wes Streeting, in fact, the Health Secretary said before the election, we'll have to look at the private sector and get them in. Also, Wes Streeting said we're going to have a national conversation about the National Health Service. Blimey, that message that didn't get through to Rachel Reeves, who's suddenly given the NHS £22 billion without anybody knowing where it's going and without asking for any productivity in return.
I mean, having said all of that, anybody watching who's waiting on a waiting list, maybe in pain, will be hoping that so 22 billion is going to filter down and make sure that they don't have to wait. Plus, hoping they might get to see their GP in the next fortnight or beyond.
So inefficient, we know that. The NHS has had a 50% increase in budget since the Tories got in 2010, and it's still massively inefficient and wastes lots of money.
Because the NHS
we'll
needs
go to a break, we'll come
report.
back. We've got lots to say about this, obviously, and I know you have too. Thank you so much for phoning. Looking forward to hearing from you. After the break, we're taking more of your calls. Was Labour's pre-Halloween budget a trick for you or was it a treat? Before the break, we asked, what did former Tory Chancellor Kenneth Clarke drink when delivering his budget speech? And the answer is whiskey. Welcome back. We're live on Channel 5 with Carolyn and Mike. Later, we're going to be asking if councils should cut back on litter bin collections to save cash. Let me just tell you about Kenneth Clarke. He was knocking back the whiskey because traditionally the Chancellor is allowed to drink whatever he or she wishes to while making the annual budget speech to Parliament, including alcohol. And they're the only MP allowed to do so in the House of Commons. Kenneth Clarke had a whiskey. Nigel Lawson, though, chose to drink a spritzer. Oh, bit of a sissy choice, that one, isn't it? I'm not sure about that choice, are you?
It's a bit weak and washy, isn't it?
Tepid, isn't it? An anemic choice, a spritzer, when you could drink anything.
A nice latte.
What would you drink?
I'd have a pint of beer because it makes my juices flow.
Well, that's very nice. And we're picturing that, aren't we, Karen? And we're trying not to, but we can't help it. All right. We're asking you if the budget was a trick for you or indeed a treat. 0207 862 2222. That's the number. Before we take your calls, let me just get out my Halloween briefcase, which, as you can see, is covered in cobwebs and is right here, to see what the paper's made of the budget. First up, the Daily Telegraph. Nightmare on Downing Street is what they say here. The Daily Express, going with the Halloween theme, of course, Halloween horror show. That's the Express view of the budget. We have The Guardian here. Return of tax and spend, and that's our prominent left-wing paper, Return of Tax and Spend. You would have thought they might have said something a bit more enthusiastic. And the Sun newspaper, ooh, gosh, look what they've done to Rachel Reeves' face there in the Sun. At least she kept it down at the pumpkins. That's about the petrol price, isn't it? So,
right. That
or the bar, the pub.
Yeah, so there we go.
That Guardian headline, by the way, is very interesting, Vanessa, because, as you say, Guardian headline, tax and spend. Yeah. To some newspapers, that would be a criticism. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
They're tax management. Well, the Guardian are actually saying tax and spend is back. You see what I mean?
In a good way.
Exactly.
OK, well, we'll wait to see what our lovely viewers think. Despite unveiling £40 billion of tax rises, Rachel Reeves could not rule out more in the future when grilled by Beth Rigby of Sky News.
You're asking the public for 40 billion tax rises. Can you at least reassure people there are no more tax rises after this?
Well, I've committed to just have one budget a year. I'm not coming back to this in the spring.
Parliament.
No, I'm not going to make commitments to never change taxes again. That would be irresponsible. But this is a once-in-a-Parliament budget to wipe the slate clean after the mess that the Conservatives have left us.
Let's go straight to the lines and talk to Ray in Nottingham. Hello, Ray. Morning to you. Was it good for you, this budget?
It was a fantastic trick.
Oh, a trick. OK, tell me why. What happened?
Well, the Chancellor stated, in my late 70s, yes. I'm a pensioner. I own my own single pension. I own my own modest two-bedroom semi-detached house. Yeah. I'm on a wage cut next year. She said the pension would go up by £460. That's a lie. Martin Lewis has stated this morning that majority, it would go up £370. And I trust Martin Lewis. £370, let's call it £7 a week. I'm losing £4 a week on fuel allowance, £3 a week electricity is going up, £1.40 tax, water rates are going up. I'm out of pocket. This triple lock is wrong.
Right.
Because 2.5% of very little, it shouldn't be a percentage, it should be a cash figure.
Let's ask Carolyn about that.
Well, the triple lock was something that the Conservatives would have been doing anyway. So from what Ray is saying, if the triple lock is the problem as he perceives it, then he would, regardless who was in power, he was going to be in the same position. But you will be better off under a Labour government, right? But, you have to accept that this is the first budget she's done. There's a huge amount of work that needs to be done. And bear with us, because we need to get this country back on its feet.
Mike, do you see trickery here, or do you see somebody trying valiantly to balance books that don't balance?
I think Ray's outlined it from a very individual perspective as a pensioner in his 70s. But, Ray, there's going to be other costs as well. Because of the national insurance increase and because of the increase, which we haven't mentioned yet, in the minimum wage, which, by the way, is 16% from anybody from 18 to 21, prices are going to go up, particularly in small businesses. If Ray uses a local cafe for a cup of tea a couple of times a week, the cost of that cup of tea will go up because the cost of employing people to work in the cafe and the money they've got to give to their employees is going up. We're going to suffer price rises, which will affect everybody.
But might people deserve a decent wage to live off?
They do, but the problem is if it affects the rest of society and we can't buy a cup of tea...
we can't keep some people in poverty.
We can't buy a cup of tea, then the economy is going to crash.
But we can't keep people in poverty. We can't give people low wages. Well, you are if you're not going to increase the minimum wage.
No, I don't agree.
Because they wouldn't be able to buy the cup of tea from anybody else's cafe.
I think you've got to be fair in the balance.
But it is fair. It's giving money to those who need it.
In the private sector and the public sector get a brilliant brilliant deal. They get fantastic
because
pensions.
they provide the most services.
Yes, but they don't provide any productivity.
Let's
But this is what we need
let's
to
talk to
change.
Raymond. Raymond is in North Yorkshire this morning. Raymond, hello, morning to you. You sat there, you heard what Rachel Reeves had to say. How is it going to be for you, do you think?
Well, I think it's fantastic for the rest of the people in the world, in the country, sorry. I mean, you take a thief to catch a thief. We had Thatcher, who had 15% interest. We had Truss, who double your rents and double your mortgages. And now we've got a good housekeeper that's going to come and put everything right for us. It's fantastic.
Oh, you're feeling good. So when you think about your own budget, how it's going to affect you, is there anything particularly great that you were fastening on yesterday?
Well, you're on about taking the fuel allowance away. Well, when Boris Johnson's father has to buy, doesn't get it, well, that's well worth it. And that other woman who made the dentist deplorable, so everybody's pulling their own teeth out, they won't get the £300. So let's give and take.
All right. So you're feeling optimistic. It doesn't even sound as if you're guardedly optimistic, Raymond. It sounds as if you're jubilant,
going
right?
for a cup of tea. People, they're going for a cup of tea in the food banks because they can't afford to go in the cafeterias. That's what we've got. And they're trying to have a health service like the USA. For 50 years they've been trying for that. They're deplorable people.
So the idea, Raymond, that it might take 10 years to feel the benefit, you're feeling quite cool and comfortable with that?
Well, there's light at the end of the tunnel. And Rachel's there standing, helping us all. Brilliant.
Right. Well, that's a very optimistic and delightful way of seeing it, Raymond. What a great call. Somebody who really does feel buoyed up by this budget. Thank you so much for calling. Thanks to Raymond. After the break, we'll be getting more of your reactions to the budget. We're asked now more of your calls on whether the pre-Halloween budget was a trick for you or a treat. Let me have a quick cough. Excuse me. Were you a fan or did you have a reaction a little bit like this one?
For God's sake.
Let's go straight to Mary on the line in Wiltshire. Hello, Mary. Morning to you. How is it for you? What do you think of this budget?
I think it was a trick because we were told all along that taxes wouldn't go up. Rachel Reeves, to me, is very hard-faced. She hasn't a clue how pensioners live. We're not all well off. And, of course, the pension's going up, but then everything else will go up with it. And as far as the NHS, as we've all keep saying, they do need money, but they need to sort out middle management because there's the problems. I've got a relation who works in the NHS, so I know this is true. Yeah. And also, I love Mike because whatever he says is right.
Oh, well. Everything he says is right. Gosh, don't encourage him, Mary, for heaven's sake.
Mike's got a fan.
You see, it seems in a way, Carolyn, surprising that Mary, she's got the triple lock on her pension. Yeah. It's going up. We know by how much. The NHS is getting more money, 22-point-something billion pounds, but she's not happy, is she?
Well, I agree with Mary on the NHS. There is a problem with the structure of the NHS and what the money that we need injected into the NHS will then be able to provide for a revised service. We need to look at what we've currently got and work out how we can get it right. Tories have had 14 years to do this. They've not done it. The NHS has gone downhill since the Tories come in. Waiting lists have gone up since the Tories have been in. So this is a golden opportunity for us to get that restructure and to provide a fit for purpose, free at the source of delivery, NHS. And that's what the money's for, and that's what the Labour government will do.
Mike, obviously the oracle of all wisdom, you've just been dubbed that. Yeah. You think Mary's right not to be happy?
I think Mary's completely right. And with age comes wisdom, and Mary's put her finger on it. I mean, Carolyn, can I ask you, is it true that not a single member of the Labour cabinet have ever worked in the private sector? Ever? They've never worked for a private business.
I think they have, yes.
Well, I can't find one who has.
Yeah,
they look to me like...
Off the top of my head, Peter Kyle worked for Body Shop.
They look like public sector and trade union employees. And the point I'm trying to make is that I don't believe they live in the real world like Mary does. You see, I don't
a lot
think they
more than the Tory cabinet ever did.
Of the real world, honestly. And I think that's the problem.
I mean, the Labour Party's made of people like me. I was a dinner lady and a barmaid.
Yeah.
I am a worker. And my party
Yeah.
is made up from people
Yeah.
who are workers, and they've all, we've all had life experiences.
Yeah.
That
Except
makes
Keir
us
Starmer, he doesn't know what a worker is.
Well, of course he does. It's somebody who gets a pay slip. We all know what a worker
somebody
is. It's somebody who actually gets a pay slip. So, yes, they
If
all
somebody
would have
runs a
worked.
company that employs 60 people, say a bakery or something like that, those 60 people are workers. But isn't the person running the company also a worker? And isn't that the man who has been hit with higher charges on national insurance, higher charges on minimum wage, and it will cripple small and medium businesses in this
will
country?
get support.
Not
Small
enough
businesses will get support.
Not enough.
So I should
People
tell you the number to call if you want to stop these two getting at it in such a, what would you call it? Such an irate manner. If you want to calm them down or you just want to tell us how it's going to affect you, do give me a call. 0207 862 2222. That is the number. But Mike, one of the things that Rachel Reeves said that I think would inspire people to think, yeah, she's absolutely right with this one. She said, all right, well, what would the Tories have done in my place? She did say that. Yeah. And when she said that, there was a kind of silence as everybody thought, you can criticise this as much as you like, but what could they or would they have done that might have improved matters?
Well, they should have given a pledge to examine all spending in this country. The welfare budget in this country is now nearly up to 300 billion. We all know, Carolyn will know, she's a very level-headed, sensible MP, there is room to cut the welfare budget because a lot of it is wasteful and a lot of it is taken by people who don't really deserve it. 10 million people in this country, economically inactive, half of them supported by the government.
Let's hear from Gina. Gina's on the line in London. Hello, Gina. Thanks for ringing. How's the budget for you so far?
Morning. This is the first time I haven't paid much attention to the budget.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because the country was in such a bad state. It can't get any worse with this government. So if you look at it personally, then you're going to say, oh, this, that. But if you look at it, I look at it on a whole, the NHS, all the public sectors, the vulnerable, and that's what I look at.
Yes.
And with this last government, they destroyed, mainly everyone was suffering. The elderly, they were saying you have to eat or keep warm. So how can it get worse? This government has only been in power for, less than 4 months. Yeah. So we've got to give them a chance to get on with it. And they've got to, it's not going to be easy, like they said, because things are so bad. You just can't snap your fingers and it'll get better.
Carolyn, Gina has a point. This is the beginning of something.
She does. Gina, thank you. You're quite right. We've got to be given the chance. But to come to your point, Mike, on welfare reform, and you talked about 10 million people who are economically inactive. Nearly 1 million of them are women over 50 who are actually on long-term sick for mental health. Yeah. Now, a lot of those will be menopausal women. Yeah. If we did the right thing by women, we wouldn't have them economically inactive.
We support them, don't we?
No, we don't.
Quite rightly we support them.
We don't support them. We put them on the sick and we put them on the scrap heap. We need policies, which is what Liz Kendall is going to do, to get people back into work. If people are back in work, they can contribute to the economy and then we will have growth.
So very heated, but thank you so much for all your calls on this. So many of you have been calling that we're going to take a couple more of your calls after the break. Do you think the pre-Halloween budget was a trick or a treat? 0207 862 20. A few more calls on whether the Halloween budget was a trick for you or indeed a treat. 0207 862 2222. That's the number. Let's go straight to Peter, who's in Wolverhampton. Hi, Peter.
Morning.
Morning. How do you see the budget for you?
Well, I thought, as a disabled person, we've been prepared for a horror story attack on the disabled.
Yeah.
It didn't happen.
Good.
And I thought everything else was extremely sensible.
Oh, good. So this is one satisfied customer, Carolyn.
Hello, Peter. Well done. I'm glad you agree with me.
So there you go, Mike. Somebody who says he thought that he was going to be gunned for and he hasn't been.
Pete, I'm glad it's worked out for you. Seriously, the idea of a caring society is we look after everybody in society and they've got problems, we try to help. But I wonder if you had a wider view as to whether it's good for the country as well as for yourself. I'm glad it's good for you. Is it good for the country?
Yes, because there is very definitely a protection for working people. There seems to be protection for the poor, and I think the businesses can afford it, and it all seems to me to be extremely sensible.
And carers will be able to earn money now as well as claiming carers allowance, Peter. So, I mean, that is a bonus, for people who are caring, because it's, it's a thankless job to be a carer. It's a really difficult job. So the fact you can earn money and claim carers allowance is a huge bonus.
All right, great call, Peter. Thank you very much indeed. Let's go to Claire. Claire's in Essex. Are you as content as Peter is with the budget, Claire?
Oh, hi, Vanessa. Thanks for having me on. Find your presenting so entertaining.
Oh. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Thank you very much. How are you feeling about the budget, my darling?
Yeah, well, basically, people have to remember a lot of things, right? We should be doing things for the country holistically. We all have to help out, and that includes millionaires. So first of all, you have to remember that the Labour Party has to clear up the mess around the post office scandal and the infected blood scandal.
We haven't mentioned that. I'm glad you mentioned that, Claire, actually. Thank you so much for bringing that up, because we haven't mentioned that, and you're quite right. It's the blood scandal and the post office scandal.
And the miners.
And it's going to cost literally billions and billions, adding up to about something like 50 billion pounds.
So they had to raise money for that. And also, where they had to get it from somewhere, because you always hear about all these millionaires that say, oh, we're going to leave the country. Well, how about you do something for your country and you stop counting your money at home every night and you actually put something into the country and help the most vulnerable.
And non-doms, Claire.
Of a good country.
OK, excellent call, and thank you for bringing that up. Very, very important indeed. Restitution for the post office workers, the blood scandal people, and that's excellent. Thank you. Let's go to Fiona in Lanarkshire. Hello, Fiona. Hi.
Yes, good morning. There was no mention of the WASPy women there, by the way.
No, true.
I think it's a sleight of hand. There's a mention of £22.2 billion for the NHS, but being one of the largest employers in Europe, how much of this £22.2 billion is going to have to go to pay to the rise in the national insurance,
It's absolutely
going to pay the rise in the wages, and going to have to pay to the rise in the minimum or the living wage that the NHS is going to have to pay. So how much of the £22.2 billion is actually going to frontline services?
Well, Mike's certainly nodding along with you to that, Fiona. Mike, what do you...
Fiona, it's a great point to raise, because I would say half of that's been spent already. Now, this mythical, black hole in the budget of £22 billion, we know that about £9.4 billion of that went on pay settlements just as the government came to power. That was part of the creation of their black hole. The rest will go to workers in the public sector. We know that. And Fiona's absolutely right. The other problem is that we don't know where money, when it goes into the NHS, is being spent and how well it's being spent. That's what Wes Streeting was going to do for us. And he's been overtaken by the Chancellor.
And Carolyn, Fiona brought up the WASPy women. If people aren't sure who they are, they're the women who just unfortunately, through no fault of their own, have just fallen through the pension gap.
And there was something that happened during the coalition, the Lib Dem Tory government, where they changed the age, and women who were going to be... they changed the pension age. So women who thought they were getting their pension at 60 have now got to wait till they were 65, 67.
Lots of them were in real dire straits because they were planning carefully, and their plans completely...
It's a huge injustice, and when I first came into Parliament, I spent a lot of time campaigning to try to help and support these women. But I think that we're in a situation now where I can't see them getting what they deserve.
Gosh, that's a shame.
I thought that was a scandal. I did, honestly, the WASPy women thing.
Shocking, I know. Let's go to just pure bad luck. One of those things where the goalposts change in your life, and it's not your fault.
Yeah, I mean, I think we were at a point at one point where we would have been able to get a better settlement, but some of the groups decided to take legal action. And once you take legal action, it completely changes the direction of
let's talk to Tina. Hello, Tina. You're in Buckinghamshire this morning. How was the budget for you, do you think?
Well, in personal terms, I will be worse off, but I am in favour of it because for the last 14 years, things have got better for me and worse for people who really need it.
All right, so in which way will you be worse off, Tina?
Well, in all the sort of tax ways, because I'm fortunate enough to be, despite being physically disabled, I've got a husband who's still in employment. And because he's a relatively high earner, despite the fact that I've got arthritis, I'm riddled with it. I'm able to have my heating on and keep my body temperature reasonable, but other people aren't. And I wasn't brought up to think only of myself. I was brought up to think about other people less fortunate than myself.
Yes, and so you're seeing in that when you look at the bigger picture, Tina, you think it's a brighter picture ultimately.
I think it's a brighter picture, it's a more equitable picture, and it's a picture of a country that I want to be a member of, not a country that I'm ashamed to be a member of.
That's an altruistic caller, if ever we heard one. What a nice caller. Thank you, Tina, so much. All the calls, I think, have been absolutely fascinating this morning, and by no means were they all miserable or dismal either. I mean, lots of people seem very enthused and hopeful. So we must say a big thank you also to food sculptor artist Cici Zombori of Rose Gold and Grey Gifting for these wonderful Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer pumpkins. We've thoroughly enjoyed them this morning. They're fabulous. Let's remind you